Here's a story that's well over 40 years old. I remember it because my grandmother was outraged. The story goes like this. My grandparents had bought a new sofa. After just a few weeks of use, the fabric wore off significantly in some spots. So they went back to the store where they had bought the sofa and complained about the lousy quality. But the salesperson didn't want to believe them. Instead, he smirked arrogantly and said, "That makes me wonder, what exactly was Grandpa doing to Grandma on the sofa?" Needless to say, my grandma was furious, and I'll never forget the look on her face when she told us. But here's the thing. This isn't just a funny story. It's a window into how we think about sexuality across generations. Even if that happened back in the 80s, the message is still valid today. Young generations think about older generations as asexual. We watch these movies from the 20s in black and white and see funny dressed people making funny movements. These people couldn't possibly have had sex. So when I cited the groundbreaking Kinsey data from 1953 in one of my recent videos, I received several comments doubting the credibility of this data. This tells me it's about time to make a video on granny sex. Did sexual behavior really change over the last 150 years? Or do we just think it did? And what do the Kinsey data reveal about it? My name is Dr. Stefan Buntrock, and I'm a board-certified urologist and specialist in sexual health. So here is some food for thought. The human body and mind haven't changed in thousands of years. Within us, there is still the caveman. We have the same ancient instincts, the same feelings, the same way of thinking that he had. All of this is just covered with an ever so tiny layer of what we call civilization and culture. This layer is easily removed and caveman comes out again. If you've never done so, I recommend a car drive on a German Autobahn, and you know immediately what I'm talking about. So when it comes to human sexuality, we are where we were 1,000 years ago. Nothing has changed. The same instincts, still the same desires. So data from 1953 feels as recent as it was gathered just a second ago when we think in historic dimensions. People who are into pain have been into pain in 1953 and in 1753 and even in 1253. This is something you have to understand. The hardware is the same, the wiring is the same, but the software is not. The software is our culture and the conduct society expects from us. This is something that has changed quite a lot. However, manners are important. With social media, hate flourishes and manners disappear. But manners maketh man. I'm sure you know where that quote is from. So show some manners and like this video and subscribe to UroChannel. When somebody is giving a talk, he devotes time and diligence into it. When you attend a talk in public, you clap your hands. This is how you pay for it. On YouTube, you pay with likes and subscriptions. This is how you show your appreciation that someone took the time to educate and entertain you. So please, show some manners and subscribe to UroChannel. Thank you. So let's start at the beginning. Industrialization at the end of the 18th century and urbanization set the tone for deep societal dynamics. It led to more people living in a certain area, which means an increased access to potential partners. And furthermore, they were introduced to new environments, workplaces that hadn't existed before, dance halls, entertainment venues. In 19th century bourgeois society, some intellectuals began to question traditional views of marriage and sexuality. Discussions about contraception and extramarital relationships became part of this evolving discourse. Prostitution became increasingly regulated during the 19th century, reflecting both societal control and acknowledgement of sexual freedom and mobility. World War I amplified these trends. Profound changes in sexual morality and societal sexual behavior were the result. There was the separation of married couples due to the mobilization of millions of men to the front. It caused months or even years of interruptions in marital sexual relations. It caused a significant decline in marriages and births. On the other hand, extramarital sexual encounters increased between soldiers and women in occupied territories, between military personnel and prostitutes in frontline brothels, and between women left behind and foreign laborers or prisoners of war. Sexually transmitted infections exploded during that time. Did you know that the British took action already in 1917? The British Parliament enacted the Venereal Disease Act to prevent the spread of STIs onto the civil population by returning soldiers. Today's STI clinics in the UK trace back to this act from more than 100 years ago. In other words, did they have sex 100 years ago? Yes. Did they have sex a lot? You bet. So why do we have STIs today? Because Granny and Gramps had sex. STIs are handed down from generation to generation. It's the older generation's legacy to youth. However, generations are not alike when it comes to sexual morality and sexual behavior. So let's just concentrate on the society in the US during the 1950s, because I would like to make you understand the Kinsey data. The dominant societal narrative promoted sex as acceptable primarily within marriage. Premarital and extramarital sex were considered taboo and were often hidden or stigmatized. At that time, nobody knew nothing about how America had sex and what and how people thought about it. It was a blank page. Kinsey was the first to fill that page with his groundbreaking research. From today's perspective, you could surely argue about his methodology. But as I said, human nature hasn't changed. When it comes to sexual preference, it has remained unchanged since the 50s. Internet porn, dating apps, social media, all of this just brings to life what is already there. These tools reflect existing desires, but also amplify and reshape social norms around sexuality. This is my message. I want you to understand that you can't generally disregard research just because it is a few decades old. You always have to consider the circumstances. In certain scientific areas, 80 years are nothing. The human body has been around a lot longer than that. So don't confuse sexual culture and conduct with human preference. And just remember, in 80 years from now, our grandchildren and great-grandchildren will have sex and they will look back at us and laugh. We old nags didn't really know what sex was all about, did we? If you now are curious which video I'm citing Kinsey, here it is. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.